Hello, and we are going to start our draft analysis now with the first team on our list, the Melemele Mimikyus. We have Little Snom from the Melemele Mimikyu. Say hello, Snom.
Oh,
All right, so we're going to jump right into your draft. The first pick you guys made overall, and a note that they actually had as well, they were the last pick, so they got to make back-to-back picks on these. So a lot of these were drafted as pairs. So their first two picks were the Clefairy Blastoise, followed by Durant Torracat, Cobalion Sneasel, Wigglytuff Maractus, and the Kurorok and the Duosian. Going into the synergy grade, we gave it a C plus. One of the main reasons is while we love the water part of this core, the fire and the grass part of it were really lacking in ways that we wish would have been addressed. One of the main ones that we kind of felt was as good as Torracat is in the B tier. Uh, you could have really gone for that A tier pick, especially considering that Cobalion and Durant kind of want to do the same thing, and they're both worth 60 points. You could have went for an A tier pick in Incineroar and had a little bit of a bulkier fire type, as well as can put out some offense too, and still be able to put the same utility that a Torracat's going to put out. So we would have liked to see something like that there. And one of the things too is that for the Clefairy, it's not too much of a big deal, but we noticed that a lot of these Pokemon aren't fully evolved. Five of 10 of them, so half of the team aren't fully evolved Pokemon. Like we said, the Clefairy actually benefits from that because it gets to have the Eviolite option, and with Guard, it can still do some decent stuff. But it's just something that we kind of wanted to notice on like the synergy level that when you're filling in some of your more important cores with mons that aren't fully evolved, you're definitely going to get a markdown because you don't have either A, the defensive synergy that you want with Fire, Water, Grass core, or B, the offensive type synergy to be able, or the offensive type of coverage that you would want from a Fire, Water, Grass core. For instance, the Torracat. It's not really going to give you the fire switch in defensively or the fire output that you want offensively, even though it has coverage to those moves. It's just not going to do as much damage like an Incineroar might. So because of that, because of the fact that the fire, water, grass might not be that great, we rate it C plus. But there, we want to make sure that we go ahead and say a couple of things here. The Blastoise next to the Durant is really powerful because of the fact that you have that follow me, so you can redirect fire type attacks into the Durant or into the Blastoise instead of having them go into the Durant. Obviously, these kind of things can be stopped by like Heat Wave and things like that of that nature. But just having the Blastoise there to redirect single type or you know what is it, single hitting moves like Flamethrower or Fire Blast, Overheat, that could be really valuable next to a hard hitting Pokemon that needs no setup like Durant. And then obviously Clefairy being one of the best redirectors in the game, especially next to that Blastoise that can do things like Shell Smash, setup, and then just start launching the G-Max cannonades. Really, really dangerous stuff there. And then you obviously have pairs too, like the Sneasel and the Cobalion, so you can do like beat up Justified stuff, which can also be very threatening. So, even though you don't have some of the things that we like to see out of a typical Fire, Water, Grass core that you might have in a draft league like this, the pairs that you have and some of the threats that you have in the way that you've supported them definitely are something that need to be taken into consideration. So even though it seems like we gave a C plus, seems like a lowish grade, we liked a couple of the things that you did there that really have the potential to sweep through teams that really aren't prepared for it.
Your threat level is going to be your highest grade. Um, we give you a B on threat level. Uh, Largely, a lot of that has to do with your first three picks, which I'll go through a little bit individually. The Clefairy is clearly one of the best follow me Pokemon in the format. Uh, Follow me plus Friend Guard is an amazing combination. It has a lot of utility that it can do in addition to just redirecting things um, and of course the friend guard helps with spread moves that it can't redirect. It has heal pulse. It has stuff like something like After You to help you in Trick Room. It doesn't have the best Trick Room speed. It's base 35, which is still going to be slower than a significant amount of Pokemon. Um, but it can still make use of that After You in some situations. But it's a great redirection Pokemon. It's just great support all around. Unfortunately, support is kind of the only thing it does, but it is very good at that one job. Gmax Blastoise I thought it was a really interesting pick. I like Blastoise in this league. We picked regular Blastoise ourselves. Um, I'm I'm wondering. I'm personally not 100% sold on Gmax Blastoise as an S tier pick. Um, that's something we would like to talk to you about, but it is powerful nonetheless. It's very bulky. It's better than it's ever been in Generation 8. Not only because it has this new Gmax form from the Isle of Armor, but because of the new egg move mechanics, you can have Fake Out and Follow Me at the same time. It now has access to Shell Smash, which it never had before. Shell Smash plus a big Gmax Cannonade, or Shell Smash plus a Water Spout if you can keep your Blastoise healthy. That's Both of those options are going to be really good for sweeping, and Blastoise is really bulky as well. It's not a slouch when it comes to Follow Me like something like Lucario. It's not just going to take one or two hits and go down. It has a lot of bulk in it. So if you give it a Rindo Berry or a Wackenberry or a Healing Berry like a Wiki Berry, a lot of that stuff is going to turn it into a really effective Follow Me user, especially with your third pick, Durant. Like Anthony was talking about, you can redirect those single target fire type moves into the Blastoise. It's not really going to take much damage because it resists them, and it's uh, um, it's very very bulky on top of that. And Durant itself is an amazing threat. Its damage output is absolutely ridiculous. I've been playing Durant VGC most of this year. I am very familiar with what it can do. It's got a surprising amount of coverage. Sometimes I'm still consistently surprised by its damage output, even after using it for months. It's a really amazing Pokemon. Frankly, I think it should be an S tier. It's a real steal in A tier. Really good pick there. I think those first three go really well together. Um, the Cobalion is also obviously going to be a big threat, especially because you picked it alongside Sneasel. That's going to be a great beat up combination, especially because Sneasel does have inner focus. So even if there's an opposing Pokemon faster than with Fake Out, or if you're not going for Fake Out, if you just want to beat up first turn, no problem at all. Sneasel is not going to flinch, and of course, if you Dynamax Cobalion, it's not flinching either. So you can just get that beat up off safely. Um, Really great combination there. Kind of like Dragapult, can't be faked out. Easy beat up. Um, and then the only thing is, like Anthony touched on, Durant and Cobalion are both they're kind of similar. They're very similar speed stats. They're both hard hitting physical steel type sweepers that want to Dynamax. Of course, Cobalion kind of needs that those justified boosts to be hard hitting like Durant is. Um, so they're kind of similar. So the threat level is a little bit awkward here because they're both very threatening, but they both also kind of do the same thing. So your threats are maybe not as diverse as some other drafts are. And it might also be tough to use both of them in the same match because they both really want to Dynamax. And if the other one that doesn't Dynamax, if you still bring it, it's not going to be useless, but it's not going to be anywhere near as good as it is if you get that Dynamax off with it. Cobalion's base attack is only 90, a little bit lackluster. Really wants those justified boosts and the extra power from those max moves, the extra bulk as well. If you don't have something like an assault vest on it, it's not really going to want to take those special hits, even though it does have a good defense stat. Durant kind of being the same. Its special defense is far worse, and it does have that 4 times weakness to fire. Um, and it does have very good damage output, even if you don't Dynamax it. But then you're risking missing a lot of moves. If you don't go for Dynamax Durant, you could always run some shenanigans with entrainment with the Truant ability instead of going for Hustle. Um, so I think that would be a fun thing to see in some of your matches. You do have some significant threats here, but it is a little bit weird because uh, that those two in particular are not very diverse. They sort of fill the same role. And then your last few picks, I don't see them as too threatening. Especially this trick room mode that you drafted at the end. It feels I don't want to say it feels like an afterthought, uh, but the Wigglytuff is base 40, 45 speed, something in there. Um, and then the Duosion is base 30 speed. That is good for a Trick Room user. Um, but I can see this particular Trick Room mode being outclassed by other slower ones that some other teams have. As for your draft grade, we knocked you down to a C here. Um, the beginning of your draft we felt was very strong, especially with these first 3 picks that worked very well together. I like the Clefairy, Gmax, Blastoise, and Durant all in a row. I like that you grabbed those all in the beginning. Um, the Torracat, we felt if you wanted to go with Torracat, we felt it was probably going to still be available. Uh, Maybe a few rounds later. We felt you picked it up maybe a little bit too early, and you could have got something stronger in that slot. I think you mentioned Incineroar was an option fairly early on. You could have picked that up as an A-tier pick, and then maybe done something different with that Cobalian slot because it is so similar to Durant. Maybe Incineroar would have been a better use of that A-tier slot. It would have given you a much better fire type. We also would have liked to see again, like Anthony mentioned, with the you do have a fire water grass core, and if you picked Incineroar, maybe you could have picked a higher tier grass type a little bit earlier. I am curious about what you want to do with that Maractus though, um, because it does get some interesting stuff. It does have some interesting abilities. It gets Storm Drain and Chlorophyll. Um, so I'm curious about your plans for that, and then of course using you kind of Sneasel is more than just a beat up user, but it also feels a little bit like you used your Cobalion and Sneasel picks to accomplish one singular thing, which Durant kind of sort of already does. So we felt that combination was, even though it is strong and it clearly has the potential to sweep through teams, especially because Cobalion has access to max airstream. Something I forgot to mention on your threat level. Um, it's it felt almost like it was a whole pair of picks being used to fill a role that maybe you kind of already had, uh, and so it felt a little bit like your like the beginning of your draft was very strong, but it sort of dropped off after those first 3 picks.
Yeah, so that brings us to your overall team grade. We gave you a C plus here. Like we said, a lot of it just came down to the fact that we didn't see a lot of the cores that we typically like to see in draft, to where you have like a good offensive versatility with the fire, water, grass core, offensive and defensive versatility with like a good fire, water, grass core, or a dragon, steel, fairy core that you could have been using, but overall, you have threats. And I think that's one of the things that kind of needs to be hit on a little bit. You have threats and you have different ways to support them. The Clefairy being one of the main ways, and obviously Clefairy just being a great supportive Pokemon. It's very clear that you knew, okay, I'm going to draft some heavy hitters here, but I need something here that's going to support them, which is something that we've seen in other teams as we've been reviewing some of them. They brought on the heavy hitters, but they might not necessarily have the support that you want in on those teams in particular. Um, Where you fall short, though, we feel are outside of those heavy hitters that want to Dynamax. It doesn't seem like you have a lot. That you guys don't have a lot. The Durant obviously wants to Dynamax. The Cobalian wants to Dynamax. The Gmax Blastoise, while it can be used outside of Dynamax, a lot of the times you're gonna want to justify those S tier points. You're gonna want to go, hey, we didn't draft Blastoise to be a redirector. If we wanted just a redirector, we would have drafted it in A tier. We want to use Max Cannonade. We want to Shell Smash Max Cannonade up. Well, that means Durant is not going to be Dynamaxing. That means the Cobalion will not be Dynamaxing. And if they're not Dynamaxing, it's a little bit subpar. If you take those two out, are you bringing Wigglytuff and Maractus a lot of the times? That seems a little bit suboptimal. So while you have a lot of very threatening things, we wonder if how you're going to be able to clean stuff up in the back after those Pokemon are gone. And because of that, it was close. We were debating a little bit on trying to get you up to B minus, but ultimately with the way that the graphs just ended up turning out, or the grades ended up turning out on your draft, we had to settle with the C plus.
Going into the pros and cons now, we're not going to spend too much time here because a lot of the stuff we've kind of already touched on. The pros, you guys have a lot of versatility with your Follow Me and Fake Out users. Having one Pokemon in Blastoise that can do both of them now at the same time in Generation 8, that's awesome. So you have 3 Fake Out users in Blastoise, Torracat, and Sneasel, and you have 2 of the best redirectors in the format in Blastoise and Clefairy, and that's going to help out a lot with your big powerful threats, which leads us into the next point, which is that we feel that your big sweepers, your biggest threats, are actually pretty well supported. It's clear that your main sweepers, the main Pokemon you're going to be Dynamaxing with, are going to be Blastoise, Durant, Cobalion, and we really like the support that you have for them. Clefairy is fantastic next to all of them. Having that friend guard, great support move and Follow Me. Heal Pulse on any of them is very valuable. It's got several other different techs it can use. Helping Hand, especially Helping Hand's a great one on a support redirector. And all of those Pokemon are going to benefit from that, especially if you can get that Shell Smash off with Blastoise. You get the beat up combination off with Cobalion. It's a great support mon that's going to help all of your sweepers. Blastoise, if you choose to use it as a support mon, does some of the same things as Clefairy, except it has probably better type synergy with the Durant and Cobalion because it's resisting those fire type hits. You've got it has a lot of similar tools as Clefairy. Very bulky, different typing from Clefairy. That's important. And then Torracat is it has some pivoting tools like it has access to U-turn and parting shot. The Intimidate is great for damage mitigation. Obviously, it has Fake Out. You've got some great support for your sweepers, especially Clefairy. Clefairy is very clearly one of the best redirectors in the format. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Stuff like Clefairy, Clefable, Indeedee, and of course Blastoise. Great support Pokemon, great redirectors, and you happen to get 2 of them. So you definitely have potential to sweep through teams with Pokemon like that and support your sweepers very, very well.
Yeah. And going into the cons a little bit, just real fast, the first thing you want to touch on is your weak Trick Room matchup. Obviously, you have the Clefairy with After You, but one thing that we're going to continue to hit on during this video is when you have a Trick Room mode, base 30 is really the speed tier that you want to try and hit. So many things like the Snorlax, the Amoonguss, Hatterene is base 29, but that's what makes Hatterene dangerous is that it's 1 point below those base 30s. So base 30 is where you want to hit. Clefairy's base 35. So the After You, while it is faster than a lot of things that they might have, teams that really have a dedicated Trick Room mode are most likely going to have things that underspeed the Clefairy. Things like a Scavalier, things like a Hatterene, things like a Moongus. All three of those were drafted, and all three of them under Trick Room could do serious damage to the team because you just have nothing that can really underspeed and stop things from coming out. Um, so the Trick Room matchup is something that we might have wanted to see a little bit more. Something like Kanto Marowak, which got taken a little bit later in the draft, is something that can patch up a Trick Room matchup for relatively a little amount of points because it has access to Curse. You can get a Curse up when they're trying to Trick Room, who drops you below the speed stat of base 30s, and then you're throwing +1 boosted, Thick Club boosted attacks out in Trick Room, and you can really, really devastate a lot of teams by just having them set Trick Room up for you. We really don't see a lot of options like that on this team where you could use their Trick Room against them. More or less what you're going to be trying to do in Trick Room is using Clefairy to redirect things so that way you're mitigating your damage until Trick Room ends, and then you can start putting pressure back on them with your faster Pokemon. So because of that, one of the weaker Trick Room matchups is a big con that we have. A lot of your wins are going to require just which sweeper is going to have the best matchup. You're going to be looking at team preview and go, okay, well, Durant looks the best here. Well, they're going to be looking at team preview and go, man, Durant is really tough here. Let's go ahead and throw Scarf on Heat more and start launching off Heat Wave so that way we can take care of this Durant. And now all of a sudden you have a guy that, where you might have had an automatic win matchup. They threw this one item on this one weird mon, and now your whole thing is down the drain because it's so, I don't want to say obvious, but you can kind of predict a little bit on what's coming out because obviously you're not going to be setting up for a Torracat sweep or a Sneasel sweep. It's a couple of Pokemon that are the ones that are going to be doing a lot of the major damage. Again, we talked about the weak Fire, Water, Grass core. Weak to non-existent would probably be the best way that I put it. The Blastoise is something that is an excellent water type, and it would have been the great foundation and a great backbone for a good Fire, Water, Grass core, and it just seemed like the picks weren't really chosen to really back it up a little bit. We would have liked to see an Incineroar there. I think Serena was in B tier, right? 30 points. Serena would have been something that would have been nice to go along with it. Obviously, it went pretty quickly, but a good grass type. We'll obviously talk to you a little bit about Maractus because it's something that we're not totally sure what it's going to do, so we're going to want a little bit of clarification. But it would have been one of the things that we would have liked to see get addressed. And then the last point that we wanted to talk about is just something that we've already talked about before. The fact that Durant and Cobalion seem like they're doing the same thing. And while they both are very good at doing those things, it just seems a little bit redundant that you spend 120 points to essentially a steel type sweeper. And we would have liked to see a little bit more versatility out of that fifth pick. Maybe something like an Incineroar instead of the Torracat. Maybe something a little bit more like a good grass type instead over that to really support that Blastoise a little bit. But overall, like we said, you have a lot of decent pieces that, pairs that are going to go together that are really going to try and synergize well and can probably pick up a decent amount of KOs, and you'll probably get a decent amount of wins from this. So real quick, we're going to move on to the questions and just a couple of the things that we wanted to ask concerning the draft. Obviously, points that we've already hit on. Matt's going to ask the first one. Go ahead.
So this is something obviously we've touched on a few times. What were your thoughts going into the Durant and Cobalion picks? Were you are there different things that you different plans that you have for them? Do you feel that they fill different roles more so than we do? Just what were your thoughts behind drafting both of those?
Well, we were thinking of doing Galar, Slowbro, and Asparagus with weakness policy building stuff, but then got sniped. I think this both in the same round, so we couldn't really do that. And then Ted suggested, "Oh, let's do beat up stuff." So I said, "Okay, that works fine for me." But now thinking about it, we obviously can make some trades. So I think to get some more variety, I think we will make some trades to kind of give us some more variety.
That's fair too. And another thing too that we can hit on is, you might have a matchup that really benefits Durant one week, benefits the Cobalian next week. If you bring both of those modes and then drop it after week 2, that's a good pick because it helps you in particular matchups. You got rid of it when you needed to, and A tier is still full of a decent amount of mons that can really help your team right now. And just because 60 points is a lot, Team Pussy, who's the reigning champion, were able to get by without having to spend all 400 of their points. So if you don't really like anything out of A tier, pick something you like out of B tier. Get a win with Cobalion real quick. Cool, they do the same things, okay, but 1 week we needed Durant, 1 week we needed Cobalion. We dropped Cobalion afterwards, or we dropped Durant afterwards, and we picked up something that could help us a little bit more. So I think, honestly, even though it might seem weird at first, the fact that you said that you guys have transactions planned for it, that makes a lot of sense to us, and it kind of justifies the pick a little bit more in our eyes. Something that I wanted to ask, too, is like us, you were 14, we were 13. We drafted, obviously knowing that a lot of the top S-tier mons were going to be gone. But we wanted to ask you the question of if you were the first pick, who would you have taken?
So I think a lot of people would agree with me, but I think Togekiss it's arguably the most versatile mon in draft. I have actually used it on another Wi-Fi draft league that I'm in, and it's doing big things. So, but obviously we knew that it wouldn't last until 14th pick, so we didn't want to make a plan and then have it sniped right away.
It makes sense. Now, honestly, I think I like the pairing of the Clefairy and the G-Max Blastoise. Are you there, Snom? Sorry.
Oh yeah, my internet's being weird.
No problem. Okay. So, do you want to ask something?
Yeah, the Clefairy and the G-Max Blastoise was something we wanted to touch on as well. Because you were last in the draft, you had last choice of a lot of those S tiers. So, what were there any other S tiers that you thought you might have liked to get, even aside from Togekiss, or was Blastoise something that you were looking at from the beginning?
Pretty much I was looking at it from the beginning, as I've had success actually in another multi-battle tournament with it. I think Follow Me Shell Smash is an insane combo, so I think being able to get it first and second round respectively was really good for our draft.
Yeah, that makes sense, honestly. So you have experience with the G-Max Blastoise. You like the cannonade and the effects that it has. So you felt justified in spending those extra 30 points. That makes sense.
Yeah.
We also wanted to ask a little bit about this Maractus. It's you don't have to reveal too much, but it's definitely an interesting pick to say the least. It has some cool abilities. Aside from that, I'm not really sure what it really wants to do. Can you speak to maybe why you picked it? What it might want to do for your team? Anything like that?
Of course, yeah. So any of my friends on Discord who I've been in draft leagues with know that I love Maractus. I drafted it in my first ever draft league because I was like, I need a water immunity. And I'm like, oh wait, doesn't Maractus get Storm Drain? And it did. And I remember it was just great. Like, it was just so helpful. I once went up against a rain team and I 6-0'd it with Maractus because I got a Storm Drain boost and Dynamax Maractus is setting up Grassy Terrain, and I just went to town on everything. And I've used it in almost every other draft league that I've been in, and I think I was worried that it might get sniped because obviously Storm Drain, people know that it exists. So my backup was I was intrigued that Shellos, the other Storm Drainer that wasn't picked, was an E tier. So if Maractus was gone, I was, as my rain counter, I was thinking of getting Shellos.
That's pretty cool. I don't think I ever would have expected to hear the words Dynamax and Maractus in the same sentence before. Yeah, so That sounds really cool. If you are able to do that in this league, that's something I would love to see.
Yes, absolutely. So
Yeah.
now we give you the opportunity to push back on us. Obviously, we talked a little bit before this. This wasn't as high of a grade as you would have liked. So now would be the time to kind of justify some of the picks that we kind of were hard on you for, and be able to push back on anything that you might have heard that we may have misrepresented about your draft.
Okay, so Torracat, I thought that as an intimidator, I think I had a more VGC mindset that it might go earlier than expected, and I did need a fire type. I didn't know that. I thought Incineroar was S tier, so that's why I didn't pick it. But I'm also kind of on like the ban Incineroar train. Um, um, Maractus, I just talked about. I think it's very underrated. Um, Wigglytuff. I needed something to protect from Intimidate or like as a mini sweeper if its stats get dropped. Um, let's see what else. Rock. I admit it was kind of a last second thing, but I needed a ground. I wanted a ground type. Erosion. I always on every team I make, I always have a Triggermancer. So I wanted a Triggermancer. I'm thinking maybe doing some transactions to build that out more. Maybe like you said, drop Cobalian and Sneasel because I think I don't know if it's worth the how 90 points that I spent on them. Let's see. Any other? I think I got all of the picks that I wanted. But yeah, I think that my Firewater Grass Core leaves the bit to be desired, and so does my Trickermancer. But I think as I make transactions or as the league progresses, I think I could do big things with the team.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you have plans for a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
It's great to hear that, especially with something like Maractus that we were maybe a little bit skeptical of. It's great to hear that you're planning on doing something strong with it. I'm excited to see that, and it's great to hear that you have some transaction plans to build out your team and fill out some of those weaknesses and. I really like hearing that.
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate that.
I think you have a strong backbone of a team here. I really do. This is something that you're absolutely right with. A couple of transactions, this goes from C plus team to a B plus team very easily. You're talking about 2 transactions periods, 4 Pokemon swapped out. That's 40% of the team, and you can very easily support a core like Clefairy, Blastoise, Durant. That's something that you're going to win some games just by having those 3 Pokemon together, honestly. So just hearing that, that you have that mindset that things are going to need to be changed gives us a lot of optimism that you might be one of the teams that competes to get that playoff spot, because that's the kind of mindset you need to have is improving matchup on matchup on matchup. If you feel your Trick Room answer is not good, then you get a Trick Room answer. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah.
I think we're good.
All right. So that's it for the Melemele Mimikyus, the very first team that we interviewed. I want to thank you again, Snom, for coming on with us. It was too bad that we couldn't get Ted, but it was great having you.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it, but I was able to put away some time to do this. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the feedback.
Awesome. And like we said, it was great having you. It's going to be awesome to watch you guys play. We can't wait to see what that Maractus can do.
Yeah. Delightful of Dynamax Maractus. Wait for it.
All right. So after this, or we're coming up next, we're actually going to be talking to Doesn't Click, who barely missed the playoffs last year, and they're looking to get some revenge on the league. So it's going to be fun talking to them, and we'll see you around.